Hey guys, welcome back, it's Ripe again. In today's video, my HOA president fined me over $20,000 for having a barbecue party in winter. She claimed I was violating the HOA bylaws. Here is what happened. Let's dive right into this story. The title story starts like this. I have lived in the same house for a decade and never had issues with the neighbors or the HOA. Heck, aside from having to give them money, I could almost forget that I was in one if not for a new board taking over about a year ago and being a lot more strict than the old one. And mainly it's the president, the HOA Karen. A little about me first though is that I, 38 male, live with my wife, 36 female, and enjoy having casual get-togethers. We were never into a party scene, but we're always social people, so we host game nights, barbecues, and other casual type stuff for both our friends and also people in the neighborhood that we know. This past winter, we had warmer weather than usual. I mean, it usually doesn't get below 30 here at all, but by this time in the season, it felt like early fall. We decided to host a barbecue due to the nice weather, knowing that once it got cold, we would be done until the spring came. We emailed all the usual people to come by and went to the store to get food. That weekend, the party started like normal, but out of nowhere, the HOA Karen just showed up in our backyard and zeroed in on us. I can tell you right now, that woman was not and never was invited to anything. She does not fit the mood that we tried to set of a low drama, relaxing kind of atmosphere. Seeing her was confusing, but once she opened her mouth, it all started to make sense. Karen, are you crazy? I heard that you are having a barbecue in winter. I guess technically it's winter, but we have not had a day under 50 degrees yet. Karen, the HOA does not allow barbecues to be held in any other season than summer. Well, I don't believe this, and I've seen people barbecue year-round in the past. So I said, that sounds random and also fake. Karen, it's for safety. The propane tanks can explode from being frozen and then forced to heat up. First of all, I would appreciate you lowering your voice since I'm not screaming at you too. Second, I'm using charcoal, so there's no tank to explode. And 3, how can anything be frozen when it's warm outside? She does not like being spoken to in that tone, and she goes on an absolute tirade about it being against the rules and that I need to stop right now. I get tired of the yelling and argue back that if it is against the rules, to show me, or send me a fine in the mail. Either way, I wanted her to get off my property since she was not invited. She very reluctantly left, but I got a fine in the mail the next day. She was actually trying to give me a fine of $20,000 for violation of HOA bylaws. Of course not stating which ones, just the bylaws in general. I did some research later on and found that $20,000 was the maximum an HOA could fine somebody, but that was in instances of multiple fines being combined and other stuff. She cannot just say that she wants that much money, so I refused to pay it and started getting daily calls from Karen from a ton of different numbers demanding money. In that same research, I found that there's no HOA rule or even city ordinance saying that you cannot have a barbecue in winter. The only thing I even found regarding fire in winter was not using a flamethrower to melt the snow. And yes, that is real, and yes, I want to know the story of how that became a rule. I filed a formal complaint with the HOA about Karen's behaviors and abuse of power. I also got a lawyer and threatened to file a lawsuit against Karen for harassment and defamation. She had been going around telling lies about me, like wanting to set the neighborhood on fire. Things nobody believed, but it was still defamation nonetheless. Karen was forced to step down in order to avoid the lawsuit fines and fees coming out of their own money. They also told me the fine was recalled and I did not owe them anything, even giving that to me in writing so I could not get screwed over later. The rest of the HOA was fine, honestly, it was only Karen that was the problem. I even had one member of the board thanking me and explaining that they had tried to get Karen out of the position before, but couldn't do it without a formal complaint against her. It turns out she was abusing her power over the other board members to get what she wanted as well. While deciding if I wanted to proceed with a lawsuit against Karen specifically, something else ended up happening. I ran into her husband one day and I did not even know that he was married to her. He was even at my barbecue the day that Karen went crazy, apologizing for not being able to do anything and saying if he tried to calm her down, he knew she would get even more angry and aggressive towards me. He told me that Karen was clearly suffering from a mental health disorder and that he was trying to get her forced to be diagnosed, revealing that he was divorcing her and fighting for guardianship of their daughter based on her erratic behavior. I told him that if she ended up going into a facility for treatment, then I would not end up filing a lawsuit against her, and he could go back and tell her as much. I don't know what he said or did in the end, but I found out she was admitted to a facility to get a diagnosis. I don't know what she ended up having, but my guess would be some kind of personality disorder based on her types of behaviors. I still saw the guy around and he still came to my get-togethers, which is how I got some of these updates. Before their divorce was final, and he was not part of her life anymore, of course. I kept true to what I said and I did not end up filing any charges against Karen. Some of you might think that was a wrong decision, but just hear me out, nobody got hurt and nothing ended up being damaged. She was clearly sick and in a lawsuit I don't think I would have won much of anything anyway. There was no money lost for her to pay me back and she already lost her position on the HOA board. I don't condone the idea of excusing all behavior based on a mental illness, but I do believe in letting things go instead of wasting time and energy on basically nothing. Betting for me to just have her go to the hospital and for me to get on with my life. Letting the whole thing be a good story and not how I spend thousands on legal fees to go after her. And yeah, ripe stars, I would say that was actually a wise decision by OP in the end, and honestly I hope that Karen gets the help that she needs. Mental health issues are nothing to laugh about, and I hope that Karen's life will improve in the future. Then again, I assume she would never be on an HOA board again. That would probably be best for everybody. Either way, the next one is a dog revenge story. So I worked for an internet company in Maine. The company was then bought out by a company in RI. Once every few months, this snotty jerk would come to visit from the main office. Most of his comments were condescending, us redneck Mainers, blah blah blah. He would always come with this stupid labradoodle, like he was the lord of the manor visiting the peasants. I was the supervisor for the newly created phone department and spoke to him about 2 employees who were allergic to dogs. He did not care and still kept bringing his dog on his trips/visits. I would get advance notice of his visits, so one day a fellow co-worker I enlisted and I went out for lunch and each brought back a rack of ribs from the local barbecue place. After enjoying them, we went and placed 1 rib bone into all 20+ trash cans in the call center, as well as in each office trash can. The pure joy of watching him try and pull his dog away from every trash can they walked by over and over and over again cannot be explained. I got a call from his boss a few days later, and I played it off as innocently as I could. Well, sir, you don't expect that employees cannot have a snack at their desks, do you? I mean, I could get an official break schedule going, but that would require hiring more people. I did ask Mr. Y if he could stop bringing his dog. Not only are 2 employees allergic to dogs, but this is a professional office. He was unaware of that fact. No more dog, and even better, no more him. We started getting a new manager for visit, and they were less often too. Update to the story. Wow, lots of questions about the dog. I honestly don't know if the tech support employees were allergic or not for real. They came to me and I registered the complaint, but I didn't bother nor did I feel the need to verify if the dog was really giving them any problems. For me though, it was more about the man than the dog, and the dog was just used as the tool to get rid of him. I personally love dogs and have had 5 dogs over my 50 years of life. We have a German Shepherd right now. The next one is an Am I the A-hole story. So my brother Tom, 36 male, and I, 26 female, have never had a really solid relationship. Due to our age gap, we didn't spend much time, and by the time I was old enough to develop a personality, he was moved out of the house. For the last 2 years, my brother and his fiancée Sarah, 32 female, have been planning their wedding, and it's coming up in September. I was asked to be a bridesmaid. I figured I was only asked as a courtesy since I'm her soon-to-be sister-in-law, but I still took it seriously. I've been a bridesmaid for the last 2 years. Just a few weeks ago, I managed to save up to buy the $800 bridesmaid dress. Overall, in the last 2 years, between group outings to parties, dinners, lunches, clothes, etc., I spent thousands of dollars. Eventually, all the girls in the wedding and I became extremely close and I started to get hyped for the wedding. Sarah recently got close with her brother's wife Becky, 30 female. Last week she dropped the ball on me that she no longer wants me to be a bridesmaid and she would prefer if Becky would take my place. It broke my heart a little, but it's her wedding and it's not my place to tell her how to run it, so I said it was fine. Yesterday, I went to my brother's house to pick up the bridesmaid dress and was gonna see if I could return it since it was within the time frame. Sarah was completely appalled and said that Becky was going to wear it since she and I are the same size. I said that would be fine, but they would have to pay me the $800 for it. Sarah said that Becky couldn't afford it and I should just be nice and let her use it, and said that I could keep it after the wedding. I explained that I'm not just giving away the dress and I'm not ever gonna use it after the wedding. After some bickering back and forth, I just ended up taking it and leaving. My brother and Sarah tried to compromise with me and say I could be the assistant flower girl, and I felt offended at the offer. After I said no, they then said that Becky could give me $250 for it. Again, no, and I returned the dress and got a full refund. I told them that I understand it's their wedding, but they are being extremely disrespectful to me and I don't need to deal with it, and I'm not going to the wedding. Today, my coworker says that she has an extra round-trip plane ticket to go to Miami that she will sell to me for half price, plus I would have to pay for half the hotel and I can go hang out with her in Florida. The only downside is that I'll be in Florida for the week of my brother's wedding, so will I be the a-hole if I just go party in Miami instead of going to my brother's wedding? Comment number 1, not the a-hole. They treated you with such disrespect that even if you didn't have a better offer, not going to the wedding is still the right choice. Comment number 2, not the a-hole. How can someone logically conclude that it's okay to pass on a brand new dress without compensating the original owner, considering it's within return timeline? I mean, I just cannot get around that bit. Everything else, while crappy, I get how that can happen. But damn, the dress thing just doesn't make sense at all. And yeah, ripe stars, let me know what you think about this story in the comments. And after you have done that, we will now read the update to the story. So Becky saw the post on TikTok, so she obviously let the cat out of the bag. My whole family is split on what I should do, but after a heated argument, it was mutually agreed that I will not be attending the wedding. My brother and future sister-in-law cannot seem to comprehend that this is not about the dress, but how they treated me. For those wondering what our parents have to say, our mother says, if you're gonna be an a-hole, don't be upset when someone is an a-hole back. My dad says, basically nothing, because he is long dead. My brother and future sister-in-law think that I'm being the a-hole here, but by the way my mom paid for the hotel for my trip, I think it's safe to assume whose side she is low-key on. I appreciate all the love and support I got. I will have an amazing time in Miami and won't feel the slightest bit guilty thanks to the overwhelmingly positive response I got on here. And the next one is an I don't work here lady story. So this story came from my friend's husband, Leon. And yes, this is Henry's husband. Henry is my retired army officer friend. Leon worked as a police officer from the late 90s to early 2000s until being injured in the line of duty. One December evening, Leon was finishing up his shift when Henry, who he was dating at the time, called him asking if he could pick up a couple of last-minute things for a Christmas party. Since Walmart is about a mile away from the station, Leon decides to go there. He is wearing a thick dark blue coat over his uniform, complete with vest, belt and gear, including his sidearm radio, handcuffs and baton. Or baton, I forgot how to pronounce that. Anyway, he is in the dairy section getting some cream when he heard a woman say in a low voice, "Excuse me?" Leon turns to look. There's a young woman, maybe college age, dressed in jeans, a thick coat and heavily pregnant. Definitely not the Karen type. "Can you please help me get a TV from the back?" Leon is about to use the classic "I don't work here lady" line when he sees the fear in her eyes. Now on high alert, he leans close to her and whispers, "What happened?" "I'm scared of my husband. He just shot the officer who pulled us over." Leon looks up and sees this strung out looking man who looks like he hasn't showered in days and watching them with, as Leon recounted, shark eyes. Thinking fast, Leon says loud enough for the man to hear, "I'm more than happy to help you, ma'am. Let me page back and we will get it in a minute. Hang tight." Using his cell phone, which was not as common as it is now, he texted a fellow officer who was still on duty, asking her if an officer got shot. When she confirmed it and asked what was going on, he told her what's going on, to alert the manager and to send a couple of units to the store. She responded to him that the units were on the way, the manager had been alerted and to hang tight. Once he received her text, he said, "It's on its way to the front. I will personally escort you there so the manager knows who it belongs to." So he leads the family to the front and makes eye contact with the manager. The manager, who recognizes Leon from previous excursions, comes over. Leon, keeping up the charade, says to the manager, "Boss, I think it would be good to get the lady off her feet for a little bit while we get the car loaded," he said with a meaningful look. "It's going to take several minutes anyway." The manager nods and says, "Of course, come with me, ma'am. My office is just this way." Once the lady and the manager were safely away, Leon and the man head out to the parking lot. Just then, Leon spots the officers getting out of their cars and nodding at them. The takedown was not as dramatic as you would expect it to be. They recognized him and arrested him as soon as several outstanding warrants for his arrest were revealed. The officer the man had attacked survived his injuries, and the man got a nice long prison sentence for several charges, including attempted murder. The lady filed for divorce and, with Leon and Henry's help, was able to get home to her family. Last Leon heard, she was doing well. When she heard the story, Henry, as she put it to me, knew that I met the man I was gonna marry someday. And yeah, Ripe Stars, I gotta say, I've never read such an I don't work here lady story before. Oftentimes these I don't work here lady stories feel sort of generic, but certainly not this one. What a turn. Props to OP for handling this situation so well. And now let's move on to the next story. It starts like this. This story takes place in the mid-2000s. We still had a landline and live in a small, fairly rural community. It began with us occasionally getting calls from debt collectors for someone or another who we didn't know. It's happened in the past a few times and usually only lasts for a few weeks and then dies down. This time though, it was different. It was getting more frequent and we were getting mail for the same person and the debt collectors were getting more insistent. It also went on for months. At first we would just tell them that we didn't know the person and then hang up on them. But as time went on, they would occasionally threaten to come by and take our stuff. We eventually started daring them to come by after we learned that they didn't really have any power to do anything to us, and telling them we would just call the police and get everything squared away and show them that we were telling the truth. As far as we know, no one ever came by. It's a 3-hour round trip from where the 3 collection agencies are. The mail and phone calls were getting more frequent and more forceful. We tried threatening them with legal action when they would call. We called the police on them when they would make excessive threats, which did nothing whatsoever. When a second name started popping up regularly, I decided to send a certified letter listing our phone numbers, our address, our names, and stated that neither of the people they were regularly looking for lived here. Also, that we didn't know them and had no way of contacting them. I also threatened to file criminal charges against the agencies for harassment, then sent its signature required upon delivery, which made sure there was a paper trail proving that they received it. I expected it to take a week or two and a couple of repeat letters for the other collection agencies, but the contacts ended a couple of days later. All contacts stopped later from everyone, and to this date we have not had a single contact from any of the collection agencies. Fast forward almost 10 years, a coworker and I are driving back and forth quite a bit for a job and spending a lot of time in the truck. So we talk about quite a few different things and I wind up starting to tell him the story above, and he just starts laughing hysterically, bids me to continue, and I do with him, chuckling every now and then. If you remember, I live in a small town. After I tell the story, he tells me he knows more of the story's beginning from where I left off. One of his friends got a job at a lending agency that was better than a payday loan office, but not as high up as a bank. 2 days after starting, the FBI rolls in, seizes all the computers and all of the financial records, etc., and closes the place down for a month. Apparently one of the people working there was an inside person on a scheme to keep getting loans even with bad credit and deferring the calls and letters to someone else. I was not the only one getting harassed. Also, apparently, my letter got the collection agencies to get together and find out what was going on, which ended up with a phone call to the FBI and winding up with a few people going to jail for fraud. My intention was just to send a grenade to the collection agencies with instructions not to pull the pin, and wound up with a mushroom cloud somewhere else. And thank you very much for posting this story, and guys, if you don't want to post your own story on r/ripe stories, you can do the same as Mr. Kenneth. You can simply head to my YouTube About page and find my business email there. Anyway, the next one is titled Caught Between Two Types of Stubborn. Posted by user Infinite Emotions on r/ripe stories. Well, Ripe, you asked for stories of troubles with mail carriers, so here we go. Ripe has permission to read this if he wants. Anyway, about the time I started high school, my family moved from a tiny town to a slightly larger one. I don't know what happened between the mail carrier and the previous family, but the first thing he did was take an attitude with my mom. I can't remember the exact conversation, but he called to us on the same day that we were moving in. As in, literally moving boxes and furniture into the house. Mail carrier, why haven't you changed the mailbox yet? Mom pointedly looking at the moving box in her hands, the box in my hands, and the family friends helping to move furniture. We have been busy. What is wrong with the mailbox? Mail carrier, it's too small. For context, in our area all mailboxes for sale are approved by the post office and you have to get a permit for homemade mailboxes. This was a mass-produced typical aluminium mailbox big enough for several letters, a newspaper and a small package at the same time. Mom said, "It looks good to me." Mail carrier, "You have to get a new one because I said so." Mom, "No I don't." Mail carrier, "I won't deliver your mail if you don't." Mom, "You don't have the authority to stop delivering our mail." So then the mail carrier messed with our mail. I have no idea what he actually did, but everything was severely late. We had problems with bills arriving on time for years and the water company refused to let us pay the bill unless we had the bill in hand, which was all kinds of fun. Or rather, not fun. Mail was severely messed up and my notice for senior class pictures in 2004 did not arrive until 2K13, making me the only senior who was not in the yearbook. But also, my mom is also spiteful. As soon as the carrier transferred to a new route and we got a new carrier, we also got a new, much larger, still approved mailbox. And word on the grapevine is that the previous mail carrier nearly had a stroke from hearing about how nice and considerate my mother was from the new carrier. And yeah, ripe stars, I'm really curious if that is legal, that the mail carrier can mess with your mail like that. Considering I think that in some states in the US, shenanigans related to mail can be considered a federal crime as far as I know, I'm pretty sure that the mail carrier could have gotten into huge trouble. And with this, we have reached the end of the video. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, please check out my endless playlist, where you can find thousands of hours of content. In addition, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel to not miss any of my daily uploads. Thank you so much in advance, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.